Hey everyone, welcome to Elk Addicts, the Addiction Series, Signs of September. In this episode, we're going to be discussing what we look for when preparing for a September archery hunt here in Idaho. You got to look for things a little differently than just where you see the elk this time of year. Because a lot of times the cows are down lower, they're a lot of times in the flats, they've got their calves, they're looking for flatter areas where the calves, as they're learning to walk, grow. But the bulls tend to be in bachelor herds a lot higher. So we're kind of in this middle ground where they end up during September. We're looking for things such as the wallows, rubs, trails, primary trails, secondary trails, and in today's episode we'll actually go over a bunch of that. So stay tuned and thanks for watching.
All my walls are covered in words, and while you sleep I mark my goals. Stand tall, think clear, don't let them see a hint of fear. Lines and dots, zoom in, zoom out. Open your window, let them hear you shout. Right on the poles, right on the street. Always remember the future is near.
So something we look for when trying to figure out where these bulls are going to be when in September is actually these little benches like this. A lot of these bigger bulls like to be able to feed in a little closed pocket like this. This little pocket is 100% enclosed by timber. There's no way to glass it. So a bull can come out of the dark timber over here where he can bed in the day. His cows will a lot of times move out and be feeding along these edges, and he won't leave this pocket. So you'll hear him bugling. If you're up on a ridge, you can get him to talk back to you, but he a lot of times will not leave these pockets. That's when you've got to play the wind and be able to come down either below or above him depending on what the wind is, and be able to use the cover that you have around them. But these bulls in September love these little enclosed pockets that they can feel like they're safe. So what we have here is a really good example of a secondary trail. We got a feeding area up here behind us, and they bed over in these different ridges over here. And by secondary trail, what we define that as is a trail that is definitely a trail, but it's not as deep and wide. It's not a trail that animals are hitting every single day, but it's still a definitive trail. So not a trail you necessarily want to sit on if you're trying to sit on a trail or put a camera on a trail, but it is a trail that you want to be able to check for sign. Well, I see at least a dozen beds in this spot right here. So this is what we call a bedroom. And what we define a bedroom as some place that elk have obviously bedded time and time again. There's established beds that have been used way more than once, and multiple of them. There's even a little elk hair right here where one elk obviously was shedding its winter coat. Why do they like spots like this? Well, it's a good flat bench that they can get good thermals coming up, but there's a little open hillside behind them, so anything coming behind them they're able to see. They've got multiple escape routes depending on which way danger comes. But this is definitely something you want to keep an eye on and know where it's at, because good chance that come September there'll be a bull bedded down in here with cows, and at least you'll be able to know where he's at. This trail's been hit today. So what we have here actually is what we define as a primary trail. And one of the huge things that defines a primary trail is its distance. This particular trail, as you see, it goes all down through these trees here. It's like a hiking trail. And we literally have followed this for over 3/4 of a mile, and this trail just keeps on going. There's tracks from today, signs from old tracks. We've seen rubs along the trail. So this is obviously a trail that these elk are using continuously. Hence, that makes it a primary trail. This is a good trail that we definitely want to get a game camera on, and one we're definitely going to be hunting around come September. Well, we're still working along this primary trail we talked about earlier, looking around, just scouting, looking for sign, and I found a spot right here that I want to talk about, and it's something that I preach when scouting for elk and looking for the signs of September. A lot of people get real excited they see a rub, right? And you want to mark it down, especially if it's a rub from last year. But one of the key things I like to talk to people about is having rubs from multiple years, because that tells you that it's not just a one and done type spot. For a good example, this tree right here, I put the rub at 2 to 3 years old. There's a little bit of green left in these dead needles, so they're not completely faded out, but obviously it's not from last season, so that's what puts me saying it's about 2 to 3 years old. Over here we've got some more rubs that are obviously substantially older. Bark has grown over, sap is around them. These rubs I would probably put at 6+ years old, possibly even older. And behind over the camera over here we have a rub that I would put at 10+ years old. I don't see anything right in this direct spot that's from last season, but we're talking about that I've got rubs from over 7 different years, meaning that it was in used by multiple bulls, multiple seasons. So a spot that you definitely want to keep an eye on come September, because this is what you want to look for. Well, we're still working along this primary trail, and we're actually over a mile so far. We've been on this same exact elk trail, and it's literally looks like a Forest Service trail. It's been really nice to hike along. And this particular spot caught our eye and wanted to touch base on it, and why. Basically, it's an area you can tell the elk have been milling quite a bit. There's a lot of beds, it's a bedroom, we've got multiple trails converging. And this would be a prime example of a spot that if you were new to an area that you'd want to put a camera. That way you can get an idea of how many elk are holding in the area, what kind of size bulls you're dealing with, how many bulls you're dealing with, and give you a lot better idea of what you have to deal with when it comes to September. Well, I'm up glassing this basin, new little basin we hiked up into. Glassing is a really key part of checking out a new area. It allows you to cover a lot more ground that you can't cover just on foot. You know, being out here is about the only thing that can really truly show you an area. As much as digital scouting helps, until you put boots on the ground, you really can't get a good lay of the land. Boots on the ground is what allows you to see the rubs, to find the wallows, and locate what are the main trails that the elk are using. So as far as getting out here, that is the #1 key in my opinion to success for the elk season. We're gonna keep going and keep looking for new spots. Well, now that we've narrowed down an area that we believe these elk will be in September, we're putting up a camera to start keeping an eye on it. We've seen some sign there are some elk living in here currently. Don't know if they're bulls or cows. Some tracks have looked like bulls, some look like cows. But for the most part, this is still that in-between area that the elk will move into closer to September. So with the camera, we'll be able to see who's living in here currently and start watching for an influx of elk closer to September. We also will leave this camera up all the way through September to get an idea of whether these elk are staying in this area or whether they're circling through. When judging a rub from the year before, a couple good indicators such as this one is sap that's still running out of the tree or hair still stuck on it from the bull from last year. Older rubs, the sap is going to have crystallized, the wood will turn the darker color, and the sap won't still be running out like this one. So while not a big rub, this is a rub from last year. So it's pretty cool. We're seeing a bunch of rubs in here, but I'm going to basically talk about what brought me to this area to begin with. It's a bull, basically. So we've got the primary ridge up here above me, and it runs all the way from the high peaks down to a valley. It's over 5 miles long. And then I've got two secondary ridges. So secondary ridges are basically ridges that break off of the primary ridge heading down. Secondary ridge coming down behind here. Secondary ridge coming down in here. It's pretty steep up both these sides, but down in here, as you can see, it kind of bowls out, and we've got a bunch of grass and timber, so they can feed, they can bed. So it's just kind of an area that really brings them in. The elk do not want to always be on the steepest, nastiest stuff, right? They live here every day. So they're going to find areas where they can feel safe, but not have to work as hard to be able to live. So that's what, when looking on a map, originally brought me to this area, was the fact that we had the steeper contours on the side from the ridges, but when I looked on a map, you could see the contours, the gap between the lines widened up in here, meaning that it kind of benches out and flattens out, which automatically to me says an area I need to go check out for elk. And there is 30 rubs in this spot right here. So good spot. Marked it on my my Onyx, and I'm going to go place a game camera on a trail that's right down here and start seeing what I can get for pictures. Well, I'm finishing up putting up this camera in this new little bowl that we found with all these rubs. Super excited to see if I start getting pictures of. There is sign of elk being in here currently, with also a lot of signs of September. So I'm going to finish up here. The sun's starting to go down, and I'm going to bomb down about a half a mile and be able to start glassing where I'm going to finish up this evening and see who I see coming out. Well, came out the bottom of the drainage here and actually looking at some elk over on the other side, and it's been a great day of scouting. So hope you learned something today. Help you maybe be a little more effective, or help you look for a little more of the right signs of September in your particular hunting area. And got a lot of fun stuff planned this season. So we got a lot going on for the Addiction series. We got a whole bunch of different episodes on the hows and whys for everything when it comes to elk hunting, and we got 3 different elk hunts going on. I've got over-the-counter archery Idaho here, and then I drew a Colorado archery tag where I'll be down there hunting with Remington Baker of Elk Addicts. But the one I'm really looking forward to actually is my 9-year-old son, who's been hunting with me and going with me since he was 10 months old, October. He was born, his birthday is December 8th. Then following year after he was born, he actually went out, I took him out deer hunting with me. And he drew a cow tag that opens up December 10th, so 2 days after his birthday. So he's super excited for that. We actually did a training hike last night. So be sure to follow along with that. Appreciate you following along on today's episode. Be sure to like and subscribe to the Elk Addicts YouTube channel, and keep following along with the Addiction series. Appreciate it. Good luck this season.